With much fanfare, the Canadian group Research in Motion, or RIM, launched its new operating system, BlackBerry 10. The beleaguered group also changed its name from Research in Motion to BlackBerry. The market was less than excited by the effort, though. Let's take a look.
Canadian manufacturer Research in Motion changed its name to BlackBerry yesterday and launched its new mobile operating system, BlackBerry 10, as well as 2 new devices.
We're launching the 2 new devices. We're telling the world about what we've built, our platform. We're telling the world about the developer ecosystem that we've built, not only locally but globally, so some very exciting news to come. And then in the next couple of weeks, you'll see us roll out, firstly, our BlackBerry 10 touchscreen phone, followed by, which is the BlackBerry Z10, followed by the BlackBerry Q10 in around April, which will be the QWERTY version, the hybrid QWERTY version.
Duncan McLeod of Tech Central was cautiously optimistic about BlackBerry's announcement.
I think that RIM, or as they're now called BlackBerry, has done a really good job here of building a great smartphone platform. The software looks amazing, and I think that on-screen keyboard on the touchscreen device is very good. I think the real work, though, for BlackBerry starts now. There's still a long road ahead here. I think they got themselves into quite a lot of trouble, especially in developed markets. I think emerging markets like South Africa have been their savior to some extent. But I think they're off to a good start here. This has been well executed. The platform looks great, and I think that the real hard work starts now in terms of bringing out new devices and really getting the market enthusiastic again about the BlackBerry brand.
With so much competition in the mobile space, it's going to be interesting to see the consumer's reaction to the new devices and operating system in the weeks to come.
Joining us for more is Toby Shapshak, editor of Stuff magazine, the expert on these matters. Welcome, Toby. Now, just speaking to you before this, now you say you've got all the phones, so you know all about all of them.
Yeah, I've tried all of them, and you know, as Duncan was saying, it is a really good operating system. It's solid, it works, it's exactly what BlackBerry's been promising us. You know, they believe in their brand so much that they've dropped RIM as the name of the company and they've rebranded it as BlackBerry, and they've done a very good job with it. It is as good, if not better, than some of the phone operating systems out there. Solid, it works. I like the navigation methodology or the mythology that they use. They call it flow. You can swipe backwards and forwards. There's no home button. You swipe up from the bottom to get the home screen. The Z10, which I've been playing with for a couple of days, which I unfortunately left charging at home, is very, very good. It's as good, if not better, than all the smartphones that it's competing against. The question that you're going to ask me next, and that everybody's still waiting to hear, is will it save BlackBerry? And the short answer is it's too soon to say.
Well, if you look at the share price reaction, markets don't believe it's going to save the company, whether it's called RIM or BlackBerry.
Well, you know, long-term stock exchanges work rationally, and short-term they work irrationally, right? So, you know, who knows? I mean, there's been so much anticipation and so much disappointment in the last 2 years about the kinds of things that people are expecting. So now that the product's finally out, I mean, the fact that people are responding in the way they are is quite strange. And of course, when you start comparing specs versus this, the battery's not as big as the battery on the Galaxy S3, and the camera's this and the camera's that, and the processor's not so fast. It comes down to the user experience, which is what Apple has made so fundamentally its own brand, and that what people associate with Apple is that it's easy to use. I think the same is true of BlackBerry. It has an ease of use to it. I say BlackBerry 10, and certainly the Z10 is no slouch.
I think the main issue in South Africa is the cost. And the reason people get BlackBerry in South Africa is because of BIS. But now BlackBerry comes out and says, with the new, which calls OS 10 or whatever it is called, that BlackBerry service may be taken away. What do you think the implications are going to be for sales in South Africa if that occurs?
Well, let's just separate the low end and the high end. This is a very high end device. This is designed to compete against the iPhone 5, the Galaxy S3, you know, and a couple of other big name brands. Sony, Huawei is now the 3rd largest smartphone manufacturer, and they've brought out a top-end phone with a top-end operating system aimed at that kind of slice of cream at the top the smartphone uses. It doesn't have BIS. The pricing hasn't been announced. I pushed and prodded every BlackBerry spokesman yesterday, and they wouldn't come out with it. But what I've heard from the networks is that they're looking at different pricing models. One of them would be that BBM and email is part of a data bundle, and that other things wouldn't be a part of it. I've heard things like a gig of data for 100 Rand, which is a very good price. Either way, BlackBerry sends a lot of the stuff through their servers, so it would be compressed. I think the age of very cheap BlackBerry services for the high-end phones isn't there, but definitely they're not going to try and move the business model for the low end, and eventually they will roll out this kind of operating system on low-end devices.
Toby, just taking into account all of the phones, and we've had 2 new releases, the BlackBerry 10 and Nokia recently as well. And just in terms of all the high-end specs, how do you think, what have you been impressed by, and do you see any of them falling by the wayside?
You know, it's you know, it must be as hard predicting where stocks are going to go and what they're going to do, because I was saying to some of the BlackBerry executives yesterday, you're not competing against the S3, you're not competing against the iPhone 5, you're competing against human nature. And when human nature behaves in the way that it does, it's very hard to deal with it. So there's a perception, and perception's always worse than reality, because, you know, at least reality you can counter it, perception you can't. And for a lot of people, they've had a bad experience. They lost their service for 3 days in that famous outage, irrespective of the fact that, you know, for another 362 days, the phone worked just fine. But no one will forgive BlackBerry for those 3 days. And you see how connected the world is. So in terms of specs and features, you know, read stuff.co.za, and we will tell you all the specs and features and how it compares to the iPhone and whose camera is bigger than whose. And, you know, there's been a little storm on the internet about the size of the battery. I mean, I think what's happened is BlackBerry's been under the microscope for so long, and the delays in bringing out BB10 and all the other problems, and they're having to ask the co-CEOs and the corporate arrogance that has characterized the company, much like it did Nokia. It appears to have changed. You know, Thorsten Heinz is well, he's German. He's not, you know, he's not going to be dancing in the streets. He's dour. He's serious. He's, you know, and he's not a showman by any means, and he doesn't have any flares, or, you know, he's just a straight down the road operations guy, ended up as the CEO. So it's hard to say. They're both very good operating system. Nokia is using Windows Phone 8, which I prefer to Android personally. It's have a similar sideways movement that you can get in between and out of things. The proof is in the pudding. Are people gonna buy it? Are people gonna do it?
Toby, last few seconds, 10 seconds. If you had to give the Z10 and the Q10 a score out of 10, what would that be?
I haven't seen the Q10, but I'd give the Z10 8 or 9. It's a really good phone. It's a really good operating system.